occupational health and safety training, types, validity periods, documentation, and consequences for their absence. So, everything that a person dealing with these matters in the company needs to know. My name is Pawel Sereda, and I am the Chief Specialist for Occupational Health and Safety at Safety Service. I will briefly and directly tell you about these matters. Now, let's get to the point. Occupational health and safety training is divided into initial training and periodic training. The initial training actually consists of two parts: general instruction and job-specific instruction. Only after the employee has completed these two trainings can we speak of having finished the initial occupational health and safety training. The general instruction, as the name suggests, focuses on general occupational health and safety issues, such as legal regulations, the responsibilities of the employer, supervisor, and employee, penalties for non-compliance with occupational health and safety regulations, and the employee's right to refrain from work in case of danger. This instruction also covers the mandatory clothing and footwear in the company, communication routes, medical examinations, as well as the organization of first aid and fire protection. Who can conduct the general instruction? Typically, the training is conducted by an occupational health and safety employee, commonly referred to as an occupational health and safety specialist. It can also be led by an occupational health and safety specialist from outside the company, such as a training company. A job-specific instructor can be someone who supervises employees and has completed periodic training for employers and those managing employees in the field of occupational health and safety. It is important to emphasize that the training cannot be conducted by an occupational health and safety specialist. Why? Since this is the training of a new employee for a new job position and new responsibilities, the supervisor is the one who knows this best. When should initial occupational health and safety training be conducted? Initial training should be carried out immediately after starting work, but before allowing the employee to perform work independently. For example, the employee starts work on the first day of the month. However, on the first and second days of the month, they have 2 days of introductory training. On the third day of the month, the employee will independently start work in the position. Therefore, our initial occupational health and safety training must be completed in the first 2 days. Initial training should also be conducted when an employee returns to the company after a break in employment. It is worth emphasizing that this is a different situation than in the case of medical examinations, which remain valid for up to 30 days, even in the event of a break in employment. Initial training should be provided to employees who are transitioning from a contract of mandate to an employment contract. Initial training should also be conducted for interns. What happens in the case of a change in position is new, additional training required. If an employee changes their job position or is promoted to a managerial position, only a new job-specific instruction needs to be conducted. Such instruction should also be conducted if an employee has received additional responsibilities, and as a result, there are new hazards in the workplace. In that case, only the second column of the job-specific instruction should be filled out in the initial training card. And what about individuals employed under a contract of mandate? Should they also be trained? Here, the matter is not clear-cut. On one hand, the obligation for occupational health and safety training arises from labor law regulations, while the contract for services is based on the provisions of the Civil Code. However, in the Labor Code, there is Article 304, which states that the employer is obliged to ensure safe and healthy working conditions, as mentioned in Article 207, for individuals performing work on a basis other than an employment relationship at the workplace or at a location designated by the employer, as well as for individuals conducting their own business activities at the workplace or at a location designated by the employer. This provision is interpreted differently by the National Labor Inspectorate. The main point is that contractors should be familiar with the occupational health and safety regulations of the company for which they are providing services. They were aware of the hazards, adhered to these regulations and principles, protecting themselves while also not posing a threat to others. In short, it is better to conduct training for contractors, although there are no clear regulations in this area. How to fill out the initial training card. In the upper left corner, we affix the company seal or print the card with the employer's details. In point number 1, we enter the employee's first and last name. In point number 2, the name of the organizational unit. In point number 3, we enter the date of the general instruction, the first and last name of the instructor, and the employee's signature. It is worth noting that a signature from the person who conducted the instruction is not required. However, it is considered good practice. In point number 4, you should enter the job title as it is stated in the employment contract, the date of the job-specific instructor, and the first and last name of the leading instructor. Here, I would like to draw attention to an important aspect. According to the regulation, job-specific instruction should last for 8 teaching hours for manual work positions, which amounts to 6 clock hours. Summing the time of general and job-specific instruction exceeds 8 clock hours. Therefore, the duration of the job-specific instruction must be spread over 2 working days. The situation is different for office positions, as the job-specific instruction lasts for 2 lesson hours, which fits into 1 day, along with the job-specific instructor. Next, the employee signs in the lower left corner, and the manager of the organizational unit signs in the lower right corner, along with the date. It is worth noting that the job-specific instructor can be a different person than the manager of the organizational unit. For example, this can be led by a team leader who has periodic training in occupational health and safety for individuals managing employees, while the manager only checks the knowledge and skills related to safe work practices and allows the employee to start working. Initial training is valid for 12 months. An exception applies to the training of individuals managing employees. Their initial training is valid for 6 months. After that, the employee should be directed to periodic training. Can initial training be conducted online? Online training can take the form of a video conference where there is the possibility of having a live conversation. Asking questions and receiving answers is always possible. It is usually live training with only a computer screen separating us. This is a very convenient form of training that our clients often take advantage of. Additionally, the ability to register online for training sessions, which take place daily at 9 a.m., and to send certificates directly after the training greatly facilitates and accelerates the process of hiring an employee while minimizing formalities. Now, let's move on to periodic training. I have 6 or even 7 types of periodic training. These are trainings for manual positions, meaning all jobs where manual tasks are predominant. This training is valid for 3 years or 1 year if the employee performs particularly hazardous work. Training for administrative and office employees is valid for 6 years, as well as for engineering and technical staff, occupational health and safety services, employers and supervisors, employers performing occupational health and safety tasks, and employees whose work is associated with exposure to hazardous, harmful, and burdensome factors. This group includes laboratory technicians, doctors, and also teachers. These trainings are valid for 5 years. No regulations define how to assign employees, so the employer decides based on the framework training programs for occupational health and safety specified in the regulation. Which training can be conducted online? Before I answer this question, I would like to emphasize that we can conduct training online in the form of a video conference or through e-learning. All training can be carried out via video call. E-learning training, which consists of provided materials and self-study, can be implemented for office employees, managers, occupational health and safety services, and engineering and technical staff. It is worth noting that the pandemic period has already ended, and from the beginning of 2024, all training must be conducted in accordance with the requirements of the regulation. What are the consequences for not having occupational health and safety training? Based on Article 283 of the Labour Code, an inspector from the National Labour Inspectorate can impose a fine of 1,000 PLN. Typically, these fines range from 1 to 3,000 PLN. These fines do not multiply by the number of people without valid training. It is also worth emphasizing that such a fine is imposed not on the company, but on a specific individual, on whom. It depends on the organizational structure. If the employer has not organized such training within the company, then the employer is solely responsible. However, if the employer has provided the opportunity to conduct such training in the form of a training company, a budget for such training, a training room, and has assigned the Human Resources Department the responsibility of ensuring timeliness, while managers are tasked with sending employees to such training, then the responsibility and consequences lie with the Human Resources Manager or the manager of the department in which the employee works. Finally, I will talk about the last type of training. Every employer must designate individuals to carry out actions related to fire prevention and evacuation, as well as to provide first aid. The number of such individuals and their training is the employer's decision. It is important to remember that the purpose of this regulation is to ensure that the company has individuals who possess a slightly greater knowledge and skill set than others. They also feel a greater responsibility in such situations and are the first to take action. It should be emphasized, however, that these individuals are still employees who have the right to refuse actions if they determine that it poses a threat to their safety. These individuals also do not bear any additional responsibility, including criminal liability in the event of improper execution of actions or their complete omission. That is all I wanted to convey to you. I hope this will be useful knowledge for you. Best regards.